The death of the modern relationship. I am about to say something that is going to absolutely trigger half the internet, but frankly, someone has to stop sugarcoating the truth. If you take a second to actually look around, you'll notice a massive shift that nobody wants to talk about. Successful, fit, high achieving, and intelligent men are choosing to stay single for years at a time. I'm not talking about guys who can't get a date or men who have given up because they lack options. I'm talking about the men who have everything going for them, the guys with the careers, the physiques, and the discipline who are looking at the modern dating market and making a conscious, calculated decision to stay out of it. It isn't because they lack the ability to find a partner. It is because, for the first time in history, being alone has become the only rational, logical choice for a man who values his peace. Ask yourself a very serious question, and don't just give the programmed answer. When was the last time you saw a genuinely happy, peaceful couple under the age of 35? I'm not talking about the Instagram happy couples who post filtered photos and fake smiles while they argue behind the scenes about who liked whose photo. I'm talking about a relationship where there is actual mutual respect, shared goals, and a complete lack of toxic drama. You can't remember one, can you? That is because the foundation of modern relationships has crumbled. We have traded long-term stability for short-term validation, and men are realizing that the prize at the end of the tunnel isn't a partner anymore. It's a liability. The modern relationship has effectively become a high-stakes casino where the house always wins, and the men are the ones expected to bankroll the entire operation. Imagine you walk up to a blackjack table and the dealer looks you dead in the eye and says, "Before you sit down, you need to know that you have a 70% chance of losing your life savings, your home, your access to your children, and your entire mental well-being. If you happen to be in the 30% that wins, half of those people will tell you the payout wasn't even worth the stress." Only a fool or a person with a gambling addiction would pull up a chair at that table. Yet this is exactly what marriage and long-term commitment have turned into for the modern man. It isn't about being scared of commitment. Men are biologically wired to build, to protect, and to commit to things that make sense. They aren't running away from responsibility. They are opting out of a rigged game where the rules change every day and the exit strategy for the other side is incentivized by the state. The reality is that men have done the math, and the math simply doesn't work in their favor anymore. We live in a society that tells men they are obsolete while simultaneously demanding they provide a lifestyle that most people can't even dream of. When a man looks at the risk of losing half of everything he has worked for, his house, his retirement, his future earnings, just because a partner isn't feeling it anymore, he realizes that the risk to reward ratio is completely broken. Why would a man who has built a peaceful, successful life for himself invite a storm into his living room? He wouldn't. He chooses the gym, he chooses his business, he chooses his peace, and he chooses to wait for a reality that actually offers him value in return for his sacrifice. This isn't a strike, it's an awakening. Men have finally realized that being alone is far better than being with someone who makes them feel lonely, or worse, someone who views them as a walking ATM and a safety net rather than a human being. The CEO job description. Let me tell you about my cousin. He is 34 years old, makes six figures, hits the gym 5 days a week, and has his life completely together. On paper, he is exactly what people claim to be looking for, the full package. Yet, he hasn't been on a single date in 3 years. When I asked him why, he told me that opening a dating app today feels like trying to apply for a Fortune 500 CEO position that he isn't qualified for, despite being a high achiever. The modern dating checklist has transitioned from seeking a partner to drafting a fantasy football team. We are seeing requirements that demand a man be at least 6 feet 2 inches, earn in the top 5% of all income earners, own property in multiple countries, possess the wit of a professional comedian, and maintain the infinite emotional patience of a licensed therapist. It is an impossible standard that ignores the reality of the human condition, treating men like products to be ordered from a catalog rather than human beings to build a life with. The hard, unfiltered truth that nobody wants to admit is that a huge segment of the dating population has completely priced themselves out of the market. It is the ultimate economic delusion. Imagine someone trying to sell a 1995 Honda Civic for the price of a brand new Ferrari just because they threw on some cheap seat covers and a fresh coat of wax. That is exactly what we are witnessing in the dating world. People are confusing their massive demands with their actual market value. I have personally seen women with $200 in their savings account and no clear career path demand a man who owns a villa, drives a luxury car, and can fund a lifestyle of constant international travel. They are looking for a benefactor, not a boyfriend, and they are doing it with absolutely no self awareness of the irony involved. When you sit down and actually analyze the value proposition being offered, the math falls apart instantly. I once asked a woman who had a list of requirements longer than a legal contract what she actually brought to the table to match the high level man she was hunting for. She looked at me with total confusion, as if I were asking her to solve a complex equation in quantum physics. Her literal response was, "I'm the prize." But let's be real, the prize for what? For just showing up? For having a pulse in a social media profile? You cannot expect a top tier man to trade his hard earned success, his peace, and his freedom for someone who offers nothing but a list of demands and an attitude of entitlement. If you want a CEO, you have to be more than a social media follower. You have to bring equivalent value, peace, and support to the relationship. This prize mentality has created a massive bottleneck where the men who are actually worth dating are looking at the price tag and walking out of the store. These men aren't bitter, they are observant. They see that they are being asked to provide 100% of the security, 100% of the entertainment, and 100% of the lifestyle, while the other side offers nothing but the privilege of their presence. When the cost of entry is your entire life's work and the return on investment is a headache and a set of impossible standards, the high value man simply stops playing. They realize that they can provide themselves with the luxury car, the travel, and the peace without the baggage of a partner who views them as a utility rather than a person. The market hasn't failed. The consumers have just become too delusional to realize that nobody is buying what they're selling at that price. The math of delusion. We have entered an era of total mathematical delusion where the basic laws of physics and economics seem to vanish the moment someone opens a dating app. We have normalized a culture where the expectations are completely detached from what is being offered in return. It has become common to see people who can't boil an egg demanding a partner who is a gourmet chef, or people drowning in consumer debt who believe they are entitled to a millionaire who will wipe their financial slate clean. It's a cost benefit analysis that simply never clears for the other side. When a man looks at this equation, he isn't seeing a partnership. He's seeing a bad business deal. He sees a lopsided contract where he is expected to bring a mountain of resources, stability, and effort to the table, while the person across from him brings a suitcase full of debt and a list of demands. No rational person would invest their life savings into a company that has no assets and a failing business model. Yet that is exactly what modern men are being asked to do in their romantic lives. This isn't just about money, though. It's about the total collapse of the effort for reward system that used to govern society. Men look at their friends, their brothers, and their colleagues getting absolutely destroyed in divorce court, losing homes they spent decades paying for, and being stripped of access to their own children by partners who have checked out emotionally. They go online and see foodie call tutorials where people brag about how to manipulate men into paying for expensive dinners with no intention of ever seeing them again. In this environment, the average man has realized that his effort no longer translates into security or appreciation. He sees that the harder he works, the more he is expected to give, and the less he is actually respected for it. The game has been rigged so that even if he wins by traditional standards, getting the high paying job, the house, and the family, he is still just one "I'm not happy" away from losing everything he's built. The generational gap in this delusion is staggering. My grandfather supported a family of five on a single blue collar salary, and in return, my grandmother treated him like a king. There was a clear mutual exchange of value. He provided the protection and the provision, and she provided the peace, the respect, and the home. They were a team. Fast forward to today, and a man can work 60 hours a week, pay every single bill, fix everything that breaks, and be a present father, only to be told that his contribution is just the bare minimum. When did providing a life of total security become the floor rather than the ceiling? We live in a society that celebrates hashtags like men are trash and rewards people for devaluing the very gender they expect to fund their lifestyles. The ultimate irony is the shock and confusion people feel when men finally decide to stop participating. You cannot spend every day spitting in a man's face, mocking his struggles, and calling his preferences misogyny while yours are called standards, and then wonder why he doesn't want to take you out to a nice lunch. Men are logical creatures. They go where they are celebrated, not where they are tolerated or exploited. When the math of a relationship consistently results in a negative balance for the man, where he loses his peace, his money, and his dignity, he simply closes the book and walks away. This isn't a mystery, it's basic arithmetic. Men aren't opting out because they hate people. They are opting out because they have finally realized that the current market price for companionship is far higher than the value being delivered. The inevitable market crash time is the one opponent that has never lost a fight. And in the world of dating, it is the ultimate equalizer. I see this exact pattern play out in my consultations every single week, like a movie I've watched 1,000 times with the same tragic ending. It starts at 22, when the world feels infinite and the validation is flowing in like a tidal wave. At that age, the narrative is, I don't need anyone, I'm focusing on me, and men are just a distraction. Fast forward to 28, and that confidence shifts into a rigid 47-point checklist of demands that no real human being could ever fulfill. But by the time 35 rolls around, the tone changes completely. The arrogance is replaced by a creeping sense of panic because the high value established men they finally decided they are ready for have moved on. Those men aren't waiting around for someone to finish finding themselves or building their brand. They are busy dating 25-year-olds who are happy, appreciative, and don't bring a decade of emotional baggage and a confrontational boss babe attitude to the dinner table. It is a brutal reality check that hits like a freight train. You cannot treat men like disposable options for 10 years and expect the best ones to be standing there waiting when you finally decide to settle. The catalyst for this crash is the absolute destruction of reality caused by social media. We are living in a digital hall of mirrors where every woman thinks she is entitled to a top 1% man simply because she matched with one on an app once. What she doesn't realize is that for a man at that level, a match is not a commitment or even a sign of respect. He was likely using her for a moment of entertainment or a quick release before going back to his actual life, his business, or his wife. But that one interaction creates a false sense of market value. It's like winning $20 on a slot machine and suddenly believing you're a professional gambler who can beat the house. This skewed perception makes average men, the loyal, hardworking, good guys, seem invisible or beneath her. She is holding out for a fantasy that doesn't exist for her, while ignoring the solid reality that was standing right in front of her. The most frustrating part of this entire dynamic is that most men are actually incredibly simple and easy to please. If you ask the average successful man what he wants, he isn't looking for a corporate rival or a business partner to compete with at home. He wants someone who is pleasant to be around, someone who is loyal, someone who takes care of their health, and most importantly, someone who doesn't start unnecessary drama. He wants a sanctuary, not a second job. But we have built a world where women are encouraged to view themselves as high powered CEOs and treat men like unpaid interns who should be grateful just to have an interview. When a woman enters a relationship with the mindset that she is a superior, doing a man a favor by existing, she creates an environment that no self respecting man will tolerate for long.